Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. This is Dan Bauman at LoadTrek. Thank you for taking some time here to join us. I think most of the folks have been on these webinars before. If you have not, I just want to turn your attention to that interface panel that's on your screen for the meeting. There's a question section in there. If you click on the questions area and then type in a question and hit submit, then I'll be able to read the question aloud and answer it as best I can. Today we're going to discuss the maintenance plane, and the maintenance application actually is a better way to refer to it, the new maintenance app that we've developed, the web-based connection. So let's go ahead and take a look at that if we could. So you should see my screen here. I do have the login at https://web.loadtrek.net. My mouse is moving in small circles, kind of the top center of the screen, and that's what you should see. I'm going to log into our test database. The test database is GPS and my username, and I'll put in my password here as well. You should probably recognize this interface here. If you haven't logged into your web application for your database yet or lately, you might want to do so. And you can do that at https://web.loadtrek.net. You'll go to the previous screen that we just looked at. You can put in your company name, your username, and your user password. It takes you to your dashboard here and a series of icons on the left. The one that we're going to look at today is the maintenance icon. So if I click on maintenance, it'll open up another window in my browser here, and it will show me my list of vehicles and their current status. So for those that haven't seen this before, we do show the out of service vehicles on top in red, and then if I scroll down, I can see some vehicles where the DVIR was failed. The driver has failed the inspection, and put in hopefully some notes as to why that happened. Then we have some DVRs that have passed, but drivers have entered a note where it created a repair request. In that case, the driver may pass the vehicle, but then make a note that the tires are getting old, the windshield has a small crack in it, something that doesn't quite require you to fail the vehicle, but it is enough to encourage you to make a note on it, and then the maintenance folks can look at it. And then we have a series of active vehicles here in green, kind of a lighter green, and that's the bulk of what I have here in my database. Active vehicles with no DVR failures, no DVR passes with notes, no PMs due, or no out of service. PMs due would be actually a yellow vehicle, which we don't have any currently on here. Perhaps we can create some. So this is my list of vehicles. You may be wondering why it's kind of laid out that way and kind of a big bubble here on the left. Also why there's nothing on the right-hand side. And the reason that we have the bubble icon is this is designed for use as a tablet. As we've discussed, on a tablet you can just scroll and scroll through your list very quickly by just dragging your finger. What I'm doing right now on my PC is using my mouse wheel to move up and down my devices or my truck list. If I select a vehicle, if we select this DEV8 tractor, once I click on that big button here, and that can be done on the tablet or on the PC, then you see the data populate on the right-hand side. If we look in the upper right here, we see the tractor name, odometer, latest odometer value, the model. We must not have entered a model in here in our database, device ID, vehicle identification number, or the VIN, the year, the LoadTrek version, LoadTrek hardware, and the comments if we entered those. Those would all come from the setup section when we created that piece of equipment. So it's displayed at the top here. We see the current status of this vehicle. It is in service in the upper right. You can see that little blue in service button. Once again, it's designed for like a finger to touch or to drag. That's why it's laid out that way. And then in the center, I see a whole series of areas with information. So I have a preventive maintenance area here that shows me the preventives that are in my database. I have a level 1, level 2, level 4, level 3, and some details of what they include. When this vehicle is due for those 4 PMs, and some details down below. We also have some repair requests. Here are some repair requests. In this case, the DVIR fail is the current status of this vehicle, and that's because right here, this was failed by driver 1235 on July 10th. The vehicle inspection was failed. Other days we see some notes here where it was passed, perhaps, but some notes were made as to what was needed. If we scroll further down on the right-hand side, we see some vehicle history, and it tells us some PMs, some repair requests that were handled, and just some historical data related to this vehicle. Window might be a little too low there. All right. So if you were looking at this before and you're wondering what's new, then we can talk about some of the new features. We can also, before we do that, let's talk about how we can put vehicles in and out of service and how we can process repairs in the maintenance application. So let's grab another truck here. Let's grab this DB757. Now this vehicle is currently out of service. I know that because it says out of service, and it's in red here on the left. And I see that there's some history. We did have one electrical test repair that was done. We could also do some other repairs to this vehicle. In order to do that, the vehicle has to be out of service. So let's find a better example here of perhaps this vehicle here. JB1 is the name of my tractor. I see I have a DVIR pass note, meaning some driver has passed the DVIR but made a note that something requires attention. And here it is. The DEF was low. And that's this is the driver's comments. DEF is overrated. Well, that's his opinion, but that's what he has there. But the DEF is low is what was indicated on this DVIR. It was passed by driver 4777. However, they did make this note. So in order to clear this up, maybe fill this vehicle with DEF, what I need to do first is take it out of service. So if I click on my in-service button in the upper right, it tells me to confirm my service status. Tractor JB1, the model's a Dodge. Remove this equipment from service. I can say yes. When I do that, 2 things happen. Number 1, it turns red right here to let me know that it's out of service. And number 2, I see some circles that appear next to these items that can then be clicked and they can be processed. So right now we have a repair request, the DEF is low, and driver 477 entered that in. So if I want to process that, I would click on the circle and it would tell me confirm repair, type DEF low, requested by driver 477, status it came from the DVIR, it wasn't an office entry, it came from the vehicle's inspection. Did you perform this task? I can touch yes. When I do that, it asks me to make some comments. So I can say I filled the DEF tank, and I can hit accept. When I do that, I see that my repair request has been entered here as far as fill the DEF tank by the shop, and I show green here to indicate that that repair has been processed. What I can do now that it's been done, I can put this vehicle back in service, confirm service status, tractor JB1, return this equipment to service. I click yes. I need to confirm that work was done and that I did it. And so it shows me the comments I made, the repair request that I processed, the DEF low is the name of the repair request, who did it, I was logged in as admin when I did it, and the type is a repair request. I click accept. Equipment history ticket, this equipment will go back into service at this time. Gives me the ticket number and the service date. The odometer value, we're not reading an odometer from this vehicle, but if we did, we'd populate there. And we hit accept. So now, status, this event or this line item has gone from repair request down into vehicle history. My vehicle itself has changed to that lighter green color to indicate it's active. There's no pending issues with it. And if I refreshed my driver list, it would actually be moved down into the active vehicles. Probably quite a ways down here because of the way it's named. But we would see it there down at the bottom. And so I can review this list and look at these ones that are out of service and determine is there some action that we need to take to put them back in service. So if I click on this DEV9, I can see that it's out of service. Someone said the cab smells and the brakes, and the only notes they put in there were KK. So we can process these if we'd like. I can click on this. I can say we perform this task. Yes. What do? We deodorize the cab. How about that? And likewise the brakes. I can process this. And I could say brakes fixed. I'll be very generic there. Once I do that, I can then put this vehicle back in service. I could confirm that I did both of these line items. And then it gets moved in vehicle history. So that's done. The vehicle changes color. We could hit refresh and then now see only the remaining 6 or 7 that we have here out of service. So what's new? If you're familiar with some of the stuff already, I apologize, but I think it's always nice to review. We do have the search feature for those that are, let's see, you have kind of many vehicles in your fleet. If I type JB, I see JB1 shows up down below here. If I click on that, I quickly go all the way down my list, highlight JB1 at the top, and then open it here. So if you're on a tablet environment and you can only see about 6 or 7 of these, and you're sitting there scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, it's sometimes easier to click right in here and then type in the vehicle. Say I'm looking, once I type 17, all the vehicles that have 1 or 7 in it will show, and then I can click on 172 if that's the one I want, or any of the other ones that are there. So let's go back and refresh our list. Anytime we hit refresh, brings us back up to the top of the list with the vehicles sorted in the order in which they require attention: out of service, DVIR fail, PMs due, DVIR pass note, and active. All right. So now what's different now that we've made a change? The change that we've made is being able to create a PM that's driven off of hours instead of just the odometer value. So if I click on this DEV8 or DEV8 vehicle here, I see there's a number of preventive maintenance items in our database. There's the L1, 2, 4, and then 3 at the bottom actually. And so the oil change, L1, is driven off of an odometer reading because that's due in 562 miles. L2 may or may not be driven off an odometer reading. We aren't pulling any data. But I want to draw our attention here to L4, which is driven now off of our hours and our days. And so you can configure a PM now to be driven off of utilized hours, which is this 1992 hours, or calendar days, which is the 142 days. And where do we do that? The PMs for the maintenance application are set up in the setup application, the setup section inside my web application. So back here where we were before, when we clicked on maintenance to get into the new maintenance app, we click on the setup. Inside setup, you may or may not be familiar, but there's a number of tabs that let you set things up in your database. There is a maintenance tab. If we look at that maintenance tab, and I size my window a little bit better, I see over on the right my preventive maintenance types. And here's my L1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll see that the first 3 are driven off of miles. We set it up to be on an interval of these many miles. So every so many miles we'll perform that level maintenance. Down to here, L4, it's set up on 2,000 hours. Let's go ahead and highlight that, and we can hit Edit Preventive Maintenance Type, or Edit Type, and it shows us the details of that preventive maintenance. The name, L4 replace grommets. The mileage interval and mileage warning threshold are left blank. We're not using miles to count against the time necessary between PMs. We're using operating hours. Here we have every 2,000 hours we want to perform this PM. And operating hours warning tells us how many hours warning before we hit the 2,000. So every 2,000 hours we perform the PM. Every time we get within 200 hours of that PM being due, or 1,800 hours after the last PM was done, we'll get a warning in the system, and just that means that that vehicle will show in the database as an upcoming PM is needed. We also have a calendar interval. Instead of utilizing or usage hours, we have a calendar interval, and we can say that every 180 days we want to perform this PM, regardless of the odometer, regardless of the utilized hours. I just know after about 6 months or so we need to do that. And the calendar warning threshold is the number of days that you'll be warned before you hit the 180 days. So 7 days before 180 is up, you'll get the color change for that vehicle, that it's a pending PM. So if we take a look back in our interface, we can see that this vehicle, DEV8, has it only has 8 operating hours or 8 usage hours since that last PM, because we looked at that before. It was set to 2,000, but this was set to 180 days, and it has only 142 days left. So it's been 38 days since that last PM, but we've only had 8 hours operationally. So maybe this vehicle's been sitting for some time. And this tells us here that we're going to want to address this PM in this many hours or this many days, whichever comes sooner or later, depending on your process and your policies. And then we also have an oil change coming up in 563 miles. What we see on the left-hand side, even before we expand on the vehicle, it tells us how many miles remain before the next PM, how many hours and days remain before the next PM, and any other DVIR requests, or we call them shop requests, but it basically means a request that's been entered by someone in here in this interface on the PC creating those requests. All right. So I'm going to pause for a minute or two here to see if there's any questions. Some folks that are familiar with the traditional maintenance plane in the client, all the data kind of comes and goes from the client as well, so you don't have to worry about having it in one place and not having it somewhere else. There is a number of ways we can look at the vehicle list on the left. Right now we have it set for all equipment. I could just set it to Madison and then see just my Madison vehicles on the left. Probably should have touched on this in the beginning, but you can do that. Or I can just look at any day cabs that are in my database, or any Milwaukee vehicles, or the mobile lab. So different vehicle groups, pretty standard when it comes to vehicle groups. If you're familiar with using the inventory function and some of the inventory features, we haven't yet built the inventory into the new maintenance application. That's on its way. It's kind of a work in progress. So we hope to do that soon, so that when you do create these repair requests and process them, you can then in turn add in inventory items and quantities. All right. So we can open up the window, if you will, to any questions that you have about this maintenance application, and we'll start from there. How is a person able to edit the vehicle mileage when turning a vehicle to service? Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at, I don't know if we're going to have a vehicle with an active odometer, but we should be able to still do that. let's do that here. It's vehicle 171. So we have an engine repair test entry for repair request. The vehicle's already out of service, so what we can do is it's already been processed. It looks like here it shows green. So let's put this vehicle back in service. And we'd have to do that through a repair of the past maintenance. Let's go ahead and create that event. Should have picked one that I didn't have the data on yet. Give me 1 second here. Let's open this up. Go ahead and put in a past maintenance value. Now, if the repair request odometers will come from the device, so when you put it back in service, the odometer will be read from the device. If you have to put in a maintenance event that wasn't recorded or was the initial event before the LoadTrek system was installed, then we do have the ability to create that event here and add in the odometer value. So if we needed to say that we did a brake repair to this vehicle at a specific odometer, we can put the odometer value in here by clicking in this field here. And so if it was done at 250 and it was done back on the 9th, we can put that in here and make these notes accordingly and submit. So we can create that past event using a manually edited odometer. Once that's done, then we'll count against that odometer. If it's a PM, then we'll count against that entry that's been manually entered to determine the next PM. If it's not a PM, then we would just treat it as a repair and list the odometer in which it was done. When we put the vehicle back in service, ask us if we do that, tells us did we do this because that was the last item that was processed. We hit accept. So we have an oil change that was processed there, and then the brakes are what we have done. So the way we would enter in a manual odometer and edit to an odometer is under the past maintenance. We'd create that maintenance event for that vehicle and then do that then. Hope I answered your question there correctly, but there is the idea behind it would be that the device would always read the odometer at the time it was put in or out of service, and you capture the odometer at that time. If it was something in the past that wasn't handled, then you would add it as a past maintenance event and be able to manually put in that odometer. All right. Is there any other questions here? I do encourage you, this is released. I'm not sure if I made that clear in the beginning here. So if you go into your standard web interface here and you have access to the maintenance section or the maintenance app, you can click right on the maintenance or the wrench icon here to get into the window that we're in and see all your vehicles and make any notes or review them as needed. The traditional maintenance plane still exists. It will still exist until we can, obviously get other functionality into the maintenance app here. However, the inventory, if you're using the inventory, that's still only available right now in the client. We're working to get that added on this end to the web-based application. So you don't need a client for this. You don't need a PC really. You can even just log into a tablet and go to https://web.loadtrek.net, log in accordingly, and you should have your maintenance icon on this window back here to allow you to access that section. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Please take a look at it. Obviously, these applications, some of these web applications, the maintenance in particular, we're constantly adding to and improving on. So if you have some suggestions or some feedback, we'd always like to hear it. Same thing's true with the maps for those that were on the webinar on Tuesday. You may notice some new map features, but please feel free to provide us some feedback, and we'll continue to try and make these applications and the solution the best that it can be and meet your needs. Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk to you again hopefully next week on the next webinar. Have a good day.